Hey, what's up guys? Hardleg Joe here with the YGOPro profile for the Subterror Stun deck. I'm just going to go through everything in here, and then I'll explain how it works. So for monsters, we're playing 3 Subterror Nemesis Warrior, 3 Manju of the 10,000 Hands, 2 Subterror Nemesis Archer, 3 Subterror Fiendess, 3 Prediction Princess Tarotrei, 1 Subterror Behemoth Ultramaphus, 1 Speleogeist, 3 Stalagmo, 2 Umastrix, and 1 Stygokraken. For spells, we're playing 3 Terraforming, 3 Pre-Preparations of Rites, 3 Prediction Ritual, 3 Twin Twister, and 3 The Hidden City, our only trap, 3 copies of Subterror Final Battle. Our extra deck consists of 1 each of Super Dora, Gustav Max, True King of All Calamities, Phantom Fortress, Antablathnir, Utopia the Lightning, Regular Utopia, Castell, Topological Bomber Dragon, Firewall Dragon, Gaia Saber, the Virtual Knight, Decode Talker, Subterror Behemoth Apparition, Akashic Magician, Mrs. Radius, and Proxy Dragon. The side deck I'll go over later. So this deck is a stun deck, which means its whole point is slowing down your opponent, negating their effects, stopping their plays, making it so they can't really build up a field so that you can attack them for massive amounts of damage. Probably the biggest player in this is Subterror Fiendess. Fiendess has 2 effects. First, during either player's turn, when your opponent activates a card or effect, you can send this card from your hand or field to the graveyard, target a Subterror monster you control, negate your opponent's effect, then change the Subterror to face-down defense position. So this is just great negation. If you've got any Subterror face-up on the field, and this is either on your field or in your hand, you can negate pretty much anything except for like a summon. Its second effect, while it's on the field, you can target 1 face-up monster you control, usually itself, change it to face-down defense position, and if you do, special summon a Subterror from your hand or graveyard in either face-up or face-down defense position. And you can only use each of these effects once per turn. Now that second effect is really good for summoning your Subterror Behemoths. We've got kind of a toolbox of them, a bunch of them that all have different effects. They're all flip effect monsters, and they're all level 5 or higher. Now while I'm talking about the Subterrors, I might as well go over all their flip effects really quick, just explain sort of what kind of toolbox you got. First up, we've got the Ultramaphus. This is flip, change all other face-up monsters on the field to face-down defense position. This is really good just for stopping your opponent from summoning anything from the extra deck. If they've got face-down monsters, they can't Ixie summon, they can't Synchro, they can't Link summon. Next up, we got Speleogeist. This is flip, target 1 monster on the field, change it to attack position if it's in defense position, and change its attack to 0. Which is less of a stun, more of an OTK enabler. I mean, you can use it as a stun if your opponent tries to attack, you flip this up, and suddenly their monster has 0 attack. Normally, though, you're using this on your turn, you're making their attack 0, and then attacking for 3,000, maybe even more, depending on what you've got on the field. The one we play of 3, the Stalagmo, is just your draw power, is flip, discard a Subterror monster, and if you do, draw 2 cards. Pretty good draw power considering that most of these are dead in your hand, and the cards that do allow you to summon them, like Fiendess or your Tarot, those can both be used from the graveyard too, so you're not really missing out with anything. We're playing 2 Umastrix, because this is probably the most useful. It's flip, target 1 monster your opponent controls, banish it. I don't think I have to explain why that's so good. And then Stygokraken. Flip, target set cards on the field equal to the number of Subterror Behemoth monsters you control and destroy them. So if it's just by yourself, you can destroy at least 1 like set spell trap or a set monster. If you've got multiple and your opponent's playing a trap-heavy deck, then you can destroy multiples. The important thing to remember is it has to be exactly equal to the number of Subterror Behemoths you control. So if you control 2 of them and you have 1 set card and your opponent has 1 set card, you're going to have to destroy your own set card, which sucks. That's part of the reason why we only play it at 1. Most of these we only play at 1 because they're only good in certain situations. Our side deck is filled with other copies of them, as well as another Subterror Behemoth that can be good. You can target 1 set monster your opponent controls, take control of it into your next end phase, which is pretty good if they have set cards. Normally they're not going to, so not particularly useful. But the toolbox nature of these really comes out when you're side decking. You can take the ones that aren't so useful. Maybe you're playing against Weatheries and you don't want to banish them. You can switch that out for something like Stygokraken or something like Speleogeist. Whatever you need to counter your opponent better, whatever works best. Probably the second most important monster in this deck is Tarotrei, Ritual monster, obviously. You summon it with Prediction Ritual, which can be searched with both Pre-Preparations of Rites and Manju of the 10,000 Hands. That's why we run both of these, because you want to try to get this out as quickly as possible. It requires you tribute 9 stars or more, but because we got a lot of higher than level 9 monsters, that shouldn't be too difficult. And while it's on the field, it has 2 effects. First, during either player's turn, you could target a face-up monster and flip it face down, or target a face-down monster and flip it face up. which is really good not just for activating all the effects that you want, but you can also use it on your opponent's monsters. They summon a monster, you flip it face down and you stall out for another turn, or you put it in defense so that you can attack over it. Its second effect is during your end phase, you can special summon one flip monster from the graveyard in face down defense position. So what's really good is you use your prediction ritual, you discard any one of your high-level monsters, and then during the end phase you're summoning it back, and then because it has that quick effect, you can then flip that monster face up to get its effect. Now everything else in here is just sort of support, things that help out. As far as monsters, we're playing the Subterror Nemesis Warrior and the Archer. Archer's just here to give you a little bit more normal summonable monsters. If worse comes to worse, you can normal summon this, and then if you have Fiendess in your hand, you can flip it face down to activate Fiendess's negation effect. And then if this card is destroyed by battle or card effect, you can special summon a Subterror from your deck in either face up or face down defense position. So it just gives you a little bit more field presence and a little bit of stall if they have to run over by battle or destroy it. Then you're going to be able to get one of your big Subterrors out of the deck. Subterror Nemesis is a little bit more tricky. He can enable your toolbox elements, but he requires a bit of setup. His main effect is during either player's turn, you can send one Subterror monster from the deck to the graveyard, then tribute this card and at least one other monster whose total original levels equal or exceed the level of the Subterror monster you sent. And if you do, special summon that monster either face up or face down defense position. So that's a bit long-winded, but what it basically means is if you have this card and any other monster on the field, you can send a Subterror to the graveyard, then tribute himself and the other monster you have on the field to summon that Subterror out of the graveyard, as long as his level and the level you combine are higher than that monster's. Which shouldn't be too difficult for most of these, especially if you're trading out another Subterror. Maybe it's already used its flip effect, they try to target it with something. You can then just send it to the graveyard and summon any other Subterror out of your deck, pretty much. Regardless, that just brings us to our spell traps. We're playing Twin Twister because you want to get this in the graveyard or some of your other monsters in the graveyard. We're playing the Hidden City. This is the Subterror field spell. When it's activated, you can add one Subterror monster from your deck to your hand, get you started. Once per turn, you can change a face-down defense position Subterror to face-up attack or defense position, which can be incredibly useful. You use Fiendess, that'll usually summon something face-down, and then you can use this to flip it face-up to get its effect immediately. Or even flip up your Fiendess if you've got like another face-up Subterror already, and that way you'll be able to use her negation effect during your opponent's turn. Its third and final effect is once per turn when your opponent's monster declares an attack, you can change one face-down Subterror you control to face-up attack or defense position and negate the attack, which again really useful, kind of plays off with Fiendess. Fiendess will change a monster that's face-up, face-down in order to negate something, and then when they attack you can flip it back face-up again. That just brings us to our only trap card, Subterror Final Battle. Really strong card. It's you can activate one of the 4 effects that it has on it, and instead of sending it to the graveyard, once you activate it, you can set it face down again. Of course, you can't activate a trap the same turn it's set, so you have to wait till next turn, but it's just the fact that you can use these effects basically once per turn during either player's turn. The 4 effects are change a set Subterror monster to face-up attack or defense position, change a face-up Subterror monster face down. This turn, the activated effects of Subterror cards cannot be negated, and my personal favorite, the attack and defense of one Subterror monster on the field become equal to its combined attack and defense. So just looking at some of these attack stats, you have like Speleogeist, who has 3,000 attack, 1,400 defense. If you activate that third effect of Final Battle on him, he'll have 4,400 attack and defense. Stalagmo will have 4,900 attack. Even your smaller Subterror Nemesis, both of these will go up to 3,000 attack with this, which again just helps enable those OTKs, especially if you're going to be lowering their attack to 0. And that just brings us to our extra deck, and really it's just sort of a toolbox. We've got some rank 10s, some rank 9s, some rank 4s, just depending on what you got out there. You could probably play a rank 3 and a rank 1 if you really wanted to. Most of the time I don't go into this. Same thing with the links. You can make whatever links you want. There's a whole bunch of different generic links that go with this if you can swarm the field. The only one I would recommend is actually the Subterror link, Behemoth Apparition. It's any 2 flip monsters, so it's a bit high of a cost, but it can be useful in certain situations, mainly because it gains attack equal to the original levels of the Subterror monsters that are used as its link material times 100. So if you use, for instance, a level 12 and a level 10 monster to make this thing, it's going to gain 2,200 attack on top of the 2,000 it already has, which can be useful for getting over really high attack monsters, especially if you don't have your Subterror Final Battle. It also has some other effects that are not quite as useful, but they come up from time to time. During your main phase, you can send one flip monster from your deck to the graveyard, and special summon one monster from your hand to a zone that this card points to in face-down defense position. So if you happen to have another Subterror in your hand that you can't get out, this thing can summon it by sending another copy. Granted, most of these we play one of, so it's not particularly useful, but if you wanted to swap that out, side decking, this could become a lot more useful. Also, once per turn, if a monster this card points to is flipped face up, you can add a flip monster from your deck or your graveyard to your hand. So if you put something like Subterror Fiendess in one of the things that it points to, which it's got some pretty good link arrows going to the bottom left and the bottom right, then every turn you flip up, you can add a card from your deck or graveyard to your hand. Pretty nice. Now, before I go to the side deck, I just remembered the Subterror Behemoths actually have an additional shared effect. They all have this. It's really useful in certain situations, although with this deck, it doesn't really swarm with them a whole lot, at least not using their effects. But the effect is, if a face-up monster you control is flipped face down, and you control no face-up monsters, you can special summon this card from your hand in defense position. Also, once per turn, you can change this card to face-down defense position. So that second part, that's just useful for reusing your effects. Every turn during your main phase, you can just flip these face down, and then flip them up again, either just manually, or by using the Hidden City, Subterror Final Battle, Tarotrei, however you want to do it. And of course, if you do flip them down and they're the only monster you control, and you have another Subterror Behemoth in your hand, then you can special summon it. It doesn't come up very often, but it can be good for alleviating bricks, especially if your opponent's destroyed a lot of your other monsters. They've gotten rid of your Tarotrei or whatever. So now that that's out of the way, let's just talk about the rest of the side deck. Like I said, most of these are just other options. Sometimes you want another Archer. Sometimes some of these other Subterror Behemoths can be good. I got two of the Prediction Princess Coin Norma. This is Flip, special summon a level 3 or higher flip monster from your deck in face-down defense position, although you can't activate monster effects for the rest of the turn, except for Prediction Princess monsters. It can get out any of the Subterror monsters, which is really useful, although if your opponent has like 2 monsters, they attack over this first, then the Subterror that you set isn't going to get its effect if they attack into it or try to attack over it, so not too useful. But in certain situations against decks that only summon like one big boss monster, this could actually be a nice side deck card. Also, another thing I didn't mention, the Prediction Ritual. In addition to ritual summoning Tarotrei, you can banish it from the graveyard to add one Prediction Princess monster from your deck to your hand. Usually this is just used to add another Tarotrei, but if you play this, it gives you another search target, so these don't become dead cards in the graveyard. We've also got the One Foolish Burial. You can, of course, use this. I just don't really like one-ofs. Especially in this deck, I've got it pretty crammed full already. 3 Book of Eclipse. Change all the monsters on the field to face-down defense position. During the end phase, flip as many face-down monsters your opponent controls up, and then your opponent draws cards equal to the number. This can be pretty good because it's non-targeting. It's kind of like Ultrafamous's effect. It can be a good way to stall. It can be a good way to trigger your own monsters' effects because they'll be flipped down and you'll control no face-up monsters. And it can be a good combo with Voltellarek, because again, this can target a set monster your opponent controls and take control of it. So you can set them with Eclipse, summon this, flip it face up, and then steal their monsters. It was a bit too combo heavy for me, but if you want to go more trolly with this deck, you could definitely do that. And then the Spirit of the Fall Wind. When it's normal summon, add one flip monster from your deck to your hand. Just more searching. If you didn't want to do Manju, if you maybe wanted to get rid of the Prediction Princesses altogether, you could easily put this in and just help you search out your Subterror monsters even quicker. So there you go, there's your deck for this week. As always, there's a link in the description and in the end card. It'll take you to the main video where I play 10 duels against random opponents. You can see these combos in action, see how the deck works. And if not, I hope you at least enjoyed the profile. Next week, I'll be looking at my first Lynx Focus deck with Goki Beatdown. Should be an interesting time. Until then, good luck and have fun.